here. Thank you again for joining us. My name is Melissa. I am the customer marketing manager here at Billtrust. Super excited to be on and supporting our panel of experts as we have a great conversation about AI adoption and what that means in terms of the trust gap within the finance spectrum. Couple of housekeeping items before we get rolling. Please note that this is being recorded. It will be available on demand, so you can go back and see it or share it with other folks as well. If you've got any questions, please be sure to drop those into the Q&A at the bottom of your screen. That's the best way for us to see those. We'll be monitoring those, and we'll have time for Q&A at the end of our session. As we get kicked off, we're going to do a quick intro for all of our awesome presenters. Kevin, you're going to be last, so hang tight.
Okay. Okay.
Charles and Leon are joining us from SRS Distribution. Guys, do you want to say hello?
Yeah, thank you so much, Melissa and Allison and Billtrust for having us. That's a good topic that we get asked about a lot, and I'm looking forward to seeing Kevin's presentation as well. I know I will learn from that. But my name is Charles Edwards. I'm the Vice President of Credit Operations for SRS Distribution, Heritage family of companies, GMS, and the Home Depot. So we oversee trade credit operations, and we've been working a lot with Billtrust and others to really try to explore how do we utilize technology in order to cash and trade credit. And obviously, you can't be focused on tech without talking about AI these days. So glad to have you all with us to talk a little more about that. And one of our top leaders who's also pushing a lot of these efforts and within our organization is my partner in crime for the day, Leon. So Leon, go ahead.
Thanks, Charles. Yeah. Hi, everyone. Thanks for the opportunity for us to build trust. My name is Leon Zhang. I am the Senior Credit Operations Manager here at SRS and Heritage. I oversee a lot of our process automations, data strategies, reporting, and operational workflows within the credit department. This may include increasing efficiency, accuracy, and scalable solutions that support risk management and our portfolio. So AI is really something that's on our radar, especially nowadays, and really glad to speak more on it later.
Awesome. Thank you guys for joining us. Kevin, I know that AI is a topic that's close to your heart. You love
Yeah.
and get pretty excited about talking about this area. I'd love for you to do a quick intro and we'll hand it off.
Sure. Kevin Permenter. I'm a research director here at IDC. I cover financial applications. I realized something. I've been doing this job roughly 25 years, a quarter of a century, and that's a hard realization to come to once you hear the numbers. But yeah, I cover financial apps, so that's everything from like your accounting apps through to some of the key point solutions like AR and AP. And then, of course, every time I'm talking about the apps in my coverage area, AI is front and center. So, yeah, I'm excited to do it, and hopefully we'll learn a little bit. And I'm really excited to hear what Charles and Leon are going to be talking about during the panel discussion. So let's get to it. Yeah. So look, I guess the first thing I should tell you is that I wear three hats generally. As a market research analyst here, as a senior director here at IDC, I cover. I talk with the vendors, of course, like the folks here at Billtrust. Then, of course, I talk with uh, the end users, right? The folks that are buying the software. And then the third hat is that I talk with the investor community. And believe it or not, everybody's singing from the same hymnal right now, right? Everyone's sort of anxious to talk about AI and what it can do, and what it can't do. People are starting to see that AI has some benefits and then, of course, some drawbacks. So that's what we're going to do. I just wanted to lay that foundation, give you a sense of where I'm coming from. So here's what we're seeing in the market, right? The AI adoption, you see here, it is happening. It is happening rather quickly. The number of AI projects are growing pretty rapidly. The pilots are proving some value, but the nuance there is that while the automation and some of the pilots are sort of expanding. The number of uses are growing. The idea of autonomy, though, where we're talking about decision-making authority, people are pretty cautious about handing that over to AI. And we've seen a lot of the effort to expand AI beyond the pilot sort of stall when it comes to the idea of automation starting to influence the decision authority, right? So the idea of exception handling or credit decisioning or compliance sensitive workflows, these are where sort of the moments of cautiousness and sort of trepidation start to come in. We've seen that finance teams often are hesitant to trust AI in the context of of autonomy, and that's an important distinction. Next slide. So what we see is like there has become or there's sort of grown a gap, a trust gap, where if no one can understand the source of the trust gap does come down to what we just talked about, right? That hesitancy, and then especially when there's a lack of accountability. So what we've seen is that to sum it up, if no one can explain the decision, no one wants to own it, right? In so many ways, finance is an accountability function. So decision logic that can't be sort of clearly articulated, well, that creates discomfort because nobody wants to be the person standing there saying, I don't know why it did it. It just did it. And we're supposed to trust it. This is especially, huge when it comes to environments where responsibilities can't be sort of transferred to the system, right? So we're definitely seeing places where the the visibility into how the outcomes are produced uh, when that isn't there or when that decreases, leaders are cautious about it, and the perceived control is sort of diluted. And when that happens, there's your tension point, right? Responsibility stays with the finance leadership, but the decision pathway becomes opaque. You probably heard this concept of like black box versus glass box. Some of that's marketing speak, but the main point is if I don't know what it did or how it did it or where it's pulling the data from, then the hesitation becomes really important. And this is an important piece to understand. Um, with CFOs, with financial leadership, oftentimes they're the ones with their head on the chopping block. So the hesitancy is very real. And again, that's a rational human sort of response to, well, I don't know how the numbers got here or where they're from. The tendency is going to be like, I just can't use this thing. I can't trust it. And that's that trust gap that we see developing. This is when adoption slows down, and this is when, the financial leaders reject it. Because let's be clear here. Like I mentioned that the CFO's head, the financial leadership's head is on the chopping block. They're usually one of the first ones to go when things get really hairy. And let's be honest too, let's go a little step further. We've seen CFOs get thrown in jail for, for wild mismanagement. So jail time is, is on the table too. So with all of that, you can see that that trust gap, uh, while it may not be large, people are excited on both ends of AI. It's there and it's very real and it's creating these hesitancies. Next slide. So we do see that there are sort of three consistent barriers, right? First is the fear of losing control. Again, financial leaders want to be accountable or they have to be accountable for compliance and audits and financial integrity. And if any technology appears to kind of weaken that, that's gonna face pretty strong resistance. The second one that we see, of course, is this, uh, digital transformation fatigue. And I even got fatigued even writing the word digital transformation. It's been such a talking point for so long. And the finance teams have been transforming for the better part of a decade in one way or another. So many teams have endured multiple transformations. They just see this as just another sort of point of disruption to their daily life and to their workflows. So there's a real fatigue there that has developed for digital transformation. And that third one, well, I think that third one is the reality of data, right? Many financial leaders, many financial teams live in this sort of world where they see and they have to experience incomplete, inconsistent data, disparate systems, siloed data into, different environments, such that if they needed to ask really simple questions like how much cash will we collect this week? Um, the answers might be in several different systems. How much money will we pay out this week? The treasurer, these are questions that good treasurers will want to know. And the data just sort of lives everywhere, right? And if it lives everywhere, it's tough to trust. You create skepticism around the data. So that's real issues there too. So there's a reality of like this fragmented, siloed, lack of data hygiene world that they all live in. And these are just natural concerns, and they're rational too, because at the end of the day, um, these are real fears. It's not about emotion. It really these are real barriers that teams are facing. Next slide. So, the what the finance teams in our experience, what they really want. And again, part of my job when I talk to the buyers, I'm helping with shortlisting, right? So I do get to sit in on a lot of conversations and hear what they actually want. Right now, finance leaders aren't pursuing automation just for automation's sake. They want performance improvement, right? But they don't want to sacrifice control, right? So the idea is specifically what they'll prioritize is if I went down the list here, it'd be visibility into how the decisions are made. Um, it would be clear exception handling, um, good solid governance, explainability for when the audit man comes to the table, and then predictability over time. I want to be able to know and rely on this sort of person or entity to be the same and treat the problems the same today as they will next week, as they will the week after. So that predictability goes hand in hand with that explainability. And this is what we call glass box automation, and not that sort of the opposite of that, of course, would be black box. You can't see into it. So at the end of the day, transparency, it's not an optional thing for finance teams. So in the end of the day, that's what they really are after. And these are all sort of the dimensions of it. Next slide. So yes, we've been seeing a lot of AI adoption, but a lot of it now is with sort of the human in the loop, right? The idea is that um, the human uh, can is the traffic cop or the person that is used as a mechanism to check the homework of this new entity, right? Of this new employee. Um, and generally, I think human oversight has been mischaracterized as like a barrier to adoption, right? Like we just want the robots to go do their thing. I'm speaking plainly, right? But the idea though is that in reality, the human in the loop scenario, that type of approach, that's actually the things that we are seeing sort of make it out of the pilot phase and into actual use, right? This sort of human in the loop scenario is the one that right now is winning out. And it isn't really a sign of weakness in terms of automation, right? To have that human and to have that sort of checkpoint into a lot of these workflows. So you say, you use as an example credit decisioning. You have those kinds of real important kind of decisions. A lot of times you'll want someone there at the wheel, a human at the wheel. Even though a lot of the credit decisioning, the scoring, the confidence scores, the consolidation of external information, all of that stuff maybe is, sort of automated to a certain degree and brought to the point of decision. But at that point of decision, the scenarios that we are seeing sort of make it through are the ones here that do have that human in the loop. And again, as you see on the slide here, it's autonomy. If you don't have governance, that's not innovation. That's just unmanaged risk. So at the end of the day, the human in the loop scenario is the one that's sort of driving the bus right now. Now, in the far future, I'm on a council that is talking to, that is sort of exploring the use cases for A to A, right? Agent to agent kind of stuff. Agentic commerce where B2B agents are just speaking with one another and they're making deals and they're doing their thing. Feel like that's a little ways away, right? Right now, the thing that is driving the most confidence, that's building the most trust is this human in the loop scenario. Next slide. So, going to trust. Trust is built through predictability, right? Not promises. Here's the equation, right? So control plus confidence, that equals trust. Control comes, to break it down, controls comes from visibility, the ability to override, right? I remember it was about 3 or 4 years ago, we were at a conference and, everyone was still sort of at the beginning of this sort of AI thing. And the first question from the audience was, can I turn AI off? Right? Because no one wanted to be in a HAL situation. And again, I probably have dated myself with my reference. Um, yeah, Terminator 2, I don't know. That's also dated. But the idea is, that override capability. Again, a human at the wheel. That's what they want, right? And then, of course, defined data governance structures. So when you have visibility into what it's doing, the ability to override when it makes a wrong turn, and then, of course, define data governance structures, then that now you have control. When it comes to confidence, you need to be able to explain what it did and why it did it. So it needs to have that explainable logic. It needs to have a measurable and consistent accuracy, right? Again, if you know that it has this same sort of weak point when it comes to certain types of credit decisions, right? Maybe it's single care medical providers or uh, home care medical providers, and it just has a weakness there. That's a weakness that is consistent, and then you can work around it, right? So it having measurable accuracy and then consistent outcomes over time, then yeah, now you've built both control and confidence, and when both are present, financial leaders are, yeah, they're excited, and then automation can expand and even get into the area where autonomy is being done, but done responsibly. Next slide. Um, so where AI delivers some easy wins, some early wins. As you can see here, I don't need to explain these use cases to you guys. You all can see that when it comes to fraud and duplicate payments, of course, that was a huge one. I remember I was at a conference and I did this great talk about, AP, the future of AP, and it had a lot to do with like AI. And I had a passing reference to duplicate payments. And the entire question and answer section wasn't about the, sort of crazy use cases that AI is going to enable. It was about duplicate payments. And I'm like, haven't we gotten past duplicate payments? But that's where we are, right? There's still plenty of meat on the bone when it comes to the blocking and tackling of running these AR and AP departments, especially when it comes to things like duplicate payment and fraud. So that's one that I'd highlight. But then, of course, that goes along with anomaly detection, right? So the concept is simple there, being able to surface those risks early. And when you start talking about surfacing those risks, just think about all of the data that a company gives you when they do pay. Did they pay early? Did they pay late? How early? Combine that with some external data, and now all of a sudden you've got maybe a new signal that you can use to say, okay, this company, when they do a promise to pay, I got a 99%, confidence level on that based on all of these, new patterns that we were able to discover, because, that's what AI is very good at. So anomaly detection is another one that has a lot of hidden benefits there. So that's another one I wanted to call out. But again, um, you know, they don't immediately remove accountability. These sorts of new use cases, right? It's still down to being accountable and having accountability there. But these are some places where companies are starting to find some early wins. And when you can get early wins, you can start, sort of bridging that trust gap. All right. And next slide. So what should you sort of do when you're thinking about any AI solution, right? Um, I think when evaluating AI solutions, I want to be quick here because I know I'm running up against time. But when evaluating these solutions, I think financial leaders have to be, sort of focus on governance, right? And control. The five questions that matter. I'll go through them really quickly here. Can the decision logic be explained? So that's around transparency. The audibility question. Is there a defensible record here on how the outcomes were produced? How did it get here? Right? And can you defend that logic? On the control side, can the if it makes a left turn, can the thresholds be set? And can they be overwritten, right? And when something goes a little wrong, or when something changes, right, in the economy. I mean, imagine, if you will, a world economy that, it changes every 48 hours. I know it's like far-fetched, right? But just imagine in that sci-fi scenario, if the world around the system changes, can I reset those thresholds? Can those thresholds be overwritten? Um, and then, of course, learning capability. Does the system improve with feedback? And then the last one here, ROI. Can it be sort of defined within a tight window? Those first 90 days, look, you don't have much time to kind of win people over and get that adoption that you need and bridge that trust gap for both the financial leaders and folks that are, sort of boots on the ground. And that's why this last one, time to value, is really important. Next slide. This is the final one, I promise, and I'll get it to our panel of experts here. It's important, I think. AI adoption, um, what we've seen is that it doesn't fail because of technology. It fails because of a lack of confidence a lack of auditability, lack of defensibility when it comes to, um, to the technology and its output. So again, I know that trust is sort of a soft concept, but it is sort of an operational milestone that you have to consider when you're thinking about AI. Trust, even though it sounds soft, and I know I've been talking about trust for a while, so I'm starting to feel like Dr. Phil, right? But at the end of the day, it is what either allows AI to scale or it stalls it, right? So if organizations, let's see, if organizations can design trust in from the beginning, right? Um, what I mean by that is bringing in the governance, bringing in the transparency, having those measurable outcomes, winning in that first 90 days. You start to do that, then scaling this kind of idea, scaling this product becomes, really possible. And you get the buy-in from both the top and sort of the boots on the ground folks, and that's how it works. And that's how we've seen pilots go from pilot mode all the way to actually making meaningful impact. So I think that's it for me. I'll leave it there, and the next slide is a poll question. There you go.
All right, folks, get your poll fingers ready to go here.
Mhm.
We'd love to hear about what you think your biggest barrier is in scaling AI in your AR function today. So I'm going to give you guys a quick minute to drop an answer to the question through the poll. I feel like we need music. Kevin, are you going to sing for us while we wait?
See, that's how you get everybody to leave. That would be how that would work. I mean, I could do, yeah, James Brown is how I get through the weekend. So
Ooh, okay, I'm game. That's a conversation for another day. Let's talk about quick results here. So our
sure.
highest two results are actually A and B. So
Yes.
that's number one with 55% of our answers here is data quality or availability as that biggest barrier. I feel like that aligns exactly to what you were talking about today. Definitely maps right in with your ideas. And from your perspective.
Yeah, look,
About
yeah, so data quality and availability, it all comes, at the end of the day, AR, AP, tax, most of finance, it's all a data management problem, right? And AI, sort of coming in can either help with that problem or really exacerbate that problem, right? It really can go either way, but it comes down to some of those things, trust and governance and some of those other things that we talked about.
I love that. Well, panelists, I'm going to bring you guys in because I bet you have some ideas on this too. So we're bringing the crew together here. We're going to start with a question that absolutely ties into exactly what we were just discussing. And that's really the idea of like what the greatest obstacle to AI adoption is and what really causes the hesitation and that scale framework. Charles, I thought maybe I'd start with you from a leader perspective.
Yeah, Melissa, appreciate that, and it's a question I'm sure a lot of us have heard because it comes up a lot, right? Where do I start? How do I get started? And I think a lot of that comes down to the fact that AI is such a broad term, right? I hear AI thrown around like it is just this umbrella term for all of technology. So I think a great place to start is one, just don't let that AI buzzword intimidate you too much, right? We actually did within our organization an exercise to cover different AI use cases, and something we decided halfway through is to stop using the word AI, and we replaced it with just technology. Because one of the things that I think gets people caught up is they're so focused on what is AI and how do I use AI specifically, they don't realize AI is just technology, and there's a lot of other technology that's been around for a long time. RPA and algorithms and machine learning and all these other things that can also solve different types of problems, or they might play very nicely with AI. I think, taking a little time to invest in understanding what does AI mean, what are some specific, use cases, and then pairing it with an understanding of some other technology tools that either might be a better alternative depending on what you're trying to solve, or they might pair very nicely with AI to take something that seems very big and scary and turn it into something that's a little more manageable and actionable within your organization.
So, Leon, like building on that from your perspective, how do you take that and turn that into ownership and accountability with your teams?
Yeah, ownership and accountability. I think it's much like what Kevin said, right? A big part of it is the trust that's fueling that accountability. And quite honestly, everybody wants a piece of that AI pie, right? Everybody wants a piece of it. That's why we're hearing about it so much, and it's all the buzz these days. But when it comes to outcomes, that's when things start to go awry, right? It's a lot like how Kevin said. We don't know exactly who should be really in charge of the outcome of the AI. Is it the builder? Is it the person who made the prompt? Is it the team who set up the rules of the AI? It's just the ambiguity is really what's falling everybody down in terms of, hey, let's bring this to a enterprise level package, right? So for our end, I think a lot of it comes down to the initial build. You need to set those initial barriers. You need to set those definitions early on in the process. Otherwise, sometime down the line, very closely down the line, it's just going to come back and bite you.
That
Yeah,
totally makes sense. And I think, Kevin, that ties into your ideas about outcomes and ROI, right?
yeah, yeah. Look, trust and ROI are connected, right? So if leaders can't see that outcome clearly, and they're looking for, DSO reduction, working capital improvement, they're looking for, labor redeployment, those kinds of sort of headline grabbing outcomes. If they can see the impact on it, then yeah, you'll get the buy-in, right? You'll get the resources to scale, and you'll get the support. But AI, for AI, trust and ROI, they're definitely connected.
Leanne, I'm going to come back to you for another quick thought here. We heard Kevin's thoughts on like that initial pilot phase. Where do you see teams getting stuck after that pilot phase comes through?
Um, I think finance, I think in general, right? And I think Kevin also spoke a little bit on this. It's an operation on precision, on auditability, on compliance, right? So when we talked about trust and ROI, it naturally, I think the initial phase you can get there just because it starts very small, right? You're helping calculate some of the smaller items. But then when we talk about the lack of ROI, I think that's when we hit almost a dead stop. Because when we think about AI, the biggest metric for AI has always been, oh, how much time is it saving? How much cost is it saving, right? But realistically, that's very difficult to translate into a quantifiable or a measurable financial impact, especially in the short term, right? So it really becomes increasingly difficult to justify that high cost that comes with implementing AI. So essentially, we're in a situation where we have a large front-loaded investment with very delayed benefits and without clear measurable returns. So when that happens, all the factors are against it. And honestly, for many finance teams, that decision to go from that initial pilot phase to scaling becomes very hard to justify.
Charles, how do you feel about that? I see you nodding in the background. I feel like you've encountered this. All right.
Yeah. So the one thing I did want to add, I think, Leon is absolutely right, right? So it is so important to know that this is not an instant transformation, right? It requires tuning, feedback loops. It's a it's an intern that you're trying to grow into an executive, right? If you put it in that perspective, then you can kind of see, well, it's going to take some time, and you can't get frustrated with it. But then that does go back to what Leon was saying. It's hard to see it early enough to get that sort of momentum building.
I love the way that you aligned that with like career growth, like growing this intern, right? How do you think about it in terms of like truly building that confidence with teams in a way that really reduces that fear component?
Yeah, I think first thing for me, there are three things that matter here, right? First is education. Teams don't know what they don't know, especially when it comes down to AI. I was in one discussion, and the CFO and the IT, the head of IT, actually got their entire leadership team. This was like 50 people, and they all sat in a room with Claude, I think, or Perplexity, or maybe that's the same. I don't know. The tectonic plates are shifting, but they actually sat in there and they all did like school shopping. This was all over the summer. And they were just like taking turns, like getting to know what it likes. How do you talk to some of these large language models? What can they produce? What do they like to produce? What do good prompts look like? And so that's just an example of there's a sort of like boots on the ground education that needs to happen about these models and how they work and how you can use them and how you can put them in. Then there's positioning. I think AI right now is framed as like sort of cost reduction or maybe headcount. I think that's sort of a negative sort of vibe there. The framing needs to be more about like skill elevation, right? Or capacity expansion. So the idea is that I'm going to give a great person this tool, and they're gonna be able to do more. They're going to be able to take that divergent path down and have some creativity brought into. They'll have time because they're not mired in the sort of day to day. Now they can sort of think about things and sort of be curious and bring those kind of things to the table. So that's an amplifier effect. And then the third is what we talked about already. It's about transparency. So when you bring those three things together, then I think you have something.
I really appreciate that idea of like skill elevation, capacity. Those are important
Yeah.
topics. We're looking at it,
Yeah.
especially I know as a leader of a finance team, Charles, I can imagine that that's really important to you. As you're talking to your teams, how do you talk with them about really getting the maximum benefits out of AI?
Yeah, one of the things that's good news for everyone, I think, on this call who's more of a practitioner on the business side, and if we have some IT, tech professionals on the call, don't hold what I'm about to say against me, but with AI, it actually raises the value of your business knowledge. It raises it, not lowers it, right? There's a lot of people who, to your point, one of the reasons it's hard to maximize AI is people are scared of it, right?
Yeah.
I remember Terminator 2. We all watched some of these old movies, right? The robots are coming
Not
for
that
us.
old.
You
Not that
see
old, Charles.
articles. It's not that old. And you see articles all the time. Are the robots coming for your job, right?
Yeah.
So there's
Yeah.
a lot of fear, and
Yeah.
fear can make it very difficult to understand and adopt these new technologies. So, one of the things I always tell people is, hey, one, AI's got a lot of limitations, and two, AI only works with a very deep understanding of business processes, which makes all of us who
Yeah.
are, practitioners in the space even more valuable. And I'll give you a little joke that has a very valuable point to it, and that is they created the very first human that this is a joke, it's fake, it's not real. They created the first human whose brain runs on AI. As a human, his brain runs on AI. And so the first task is they were going to teach him to tie his shoes. And they said, all right, AI person, tie your shoes. And he took the two shoes and he tied them together. And it was like, no, that's not what we mean. So they broke down the detail of you take the one end and then you put it over and under and you make a loop, really detailed. And the AI person perfectly ties their shoes and then drops over dead. And they're like, what happened? He tied his shoes perfectly. And they're like, yeah, but you forgot to tell him to breathe. So that's the kind of stuff we're dealing with. when you're dealing with AI. So to answer your question, a lot of us take for granted how much detail goes into what we do. You can't tell AI, collect money. What does that mean? Collect money doesn't mean anything. That's tie your shoes, right? So a great exercise that anyone can do with no knowledge of technology, but it will dramatically accelerate your ability to maximize AI, is go back to some of your processes that you've been doing probably for a long time and really get granular about breaking them down. Okay, how do you collect your AR? Well, we make a phone call. How do you figure out who to call? What's the analysis that chooses that individual? Where do you get the contact information from? How do you structure the call? Do you make notes about the call? Really break it down. Again, think about teaching a robot to tie their shoes, right? You have to really define every step. And a lot of businesses who are doing that exercise then have a blueprint that they can marry with a little knowledge about AI or someone in tech to go, oh, AI can plug in here, it can plug in there, technology can plug in here, it can plug in there. But until you have enough business knowledge to break it down in that detailed way, it's going to be very hard to utilize some of these technologies to improve what you do.
And look, and let me throw out, so I love Charles and how he sort of illustrates things. That's exactly it, right? And while you're doing that, that exercise where you break down everything, take the opportunity to ask yourself, why are we doing it this way, right? I mean, you don't want to install AI on top of inefficient processes, right? So there's a good example. Take what Charles said and talk about tying the shoes together, but why do we do it not this way? Why do we do it? Took me so long, by the way, as an aside, took me years to figure out how to keep my laces straight and not have them turn up. And it just has to do with which loop goes over which loop first. And it took me years to figure that out. So I guess my point is, take what Charles said and then use it also as an opportunity to say, well, why are we even doing it this way? Like, yeah, let's document it and then let's sort of pressure test it and see maybe we could do it better.
Maybe we're tying our shoes together ourselves first, right? I think there's some things to look at there for sure. Hey, Leon, when you're thinking about this, and maybe you can bring the tying your shoes metaphor full circle, and all of us will have talked about it. What do you think folks are and organizations are realistically expecting when they adopt AI? Are they expecting the robot to tie their shoes?
Kind of, or perhaps directly tie the shoes. I think that's the expectation. You tell it to tie your shoes, and you have to go tie your shoes. But and I'm gonna take this metaphor and just keep running with it. But
we didn't plan this, you guys.
but as we all know, there's a couple different ways you can tie the shoes, right? And like Kevin said, there's certain ways you can make those loops, certain ways you can go about it, certain ways you can make very beautiful knots, quite honestly. Anybody ever went camping. But realistically, a big part of AI is just also about taking human knowledge and combining it, right? It's about consolidation. And a lot of times it's about figuring out what's the most efficient way to get to that best knot, right? What's the best way to get there? So realistically, AI right now, it's not a magic solution. It's not let me tell you this and I'll just go do it, right? And quite frankly, it probably shouldn't be. AI is not anything particularly new. And I think that's something that I want to bring up as well. It's not something that's new. AI has been realistically in place for decades now. We started from expert systems down to machine learning, deep learning. And really, it's only now that we have Gen AI that it's become such a big thing. But yeah, it's difficult to say, but I think expectations is that it's not a magic solution, like I mentioned, and that we should expect gains to be incremental and something that will continuously grow within the next, I don't even know how long, maybe decades, right? But we should expect it to augment our decision making and efficiency and not to replace human judgment.
I love that. All right, you guys. So when we sit down and we think about joining an event like this, a webinar like this, right? My favorite question to ask you guys is, okay, if I'm going to leave this event today and have one thing that I can literally do this afternoon after lunch or after my coffee break, what's the one like clear actionable takeaway that you want folks to leave with today from this session? And I'm gonna, Charles, I'll start with you. And I know everybody has a thought on this one.
Well, please feel free to use that joke if you liked it, and steal it and take credit for it, or not, depending on your sense of humor. Forgive me, I like dad jokes. But I think one of the best, most actionable things people can do when it comes to AI and a lot of technology is there is definitely an art to learning to think like a robot, for lack of a better word. And I always say this to folks who've studied programming. There's a lot of talk about, oh, programming is going to go away. It's going to disappear. I don't believe that at all. I have some friends who have kids who are studying programming, and I think that'll actually be a valuable skill. It'll just be different. Memorizing all the syntax to, how does C++ syntax work and where do I put the semicolon? Yeah, that's probably going to go away. AI will do that for you. But in learning how to code, you learn how to think like a robot, right? So it is still worth your time to learn a little bit of basic code. And that could be something as involved as C++ or Python or SQL, or it could be as simple as functions in Excel, right? The basis of how robots think is just yes, no, true, false, binary. It's that if this, then that type of logic, right? And that's true for RPA and algorithms and AI and machine learning. So when you get good at thinking that way, you get really good at solving problems using technology. And if you want to learn to do that and also beef up your AI skills, practice talking to some of these LLM, if you know what that means, large language model. That's like ChatGPT or Claude or Bard or Copilot. But just practice talking to some of these AI bots that we all have access to, right? The prompts and the questions are not all created equal. You can actually Google on YouTube, classes on how to talk to ChatGPT or LLMs, right? So ask it a question and then rephrase the question. Try to ask it more complex questions and try to ask it the same questions in different ways, phrased different ways. And that will teach you how to get better at interacting with AI and get better at thinking like a robot. And that, I think, is a great skill, because while Skynet may not happen and robots are not coming for your job, the person who learns how to use AI, that person might be. So that person may as well be you.
I love that. That's amazing. Leon, what do you think?
I'll go a little off of what Charles has said. I think here, AI is about elevation. It's about elevation in abilities, right? And it's allowed people across multiple different departments to now have the necessity to understand more about AI, and then as well as how it involves all of our other departments. So I think the biggest part of AI is that, hey, it's more about what it can do. It's about risk mitigation. It's about efficiency, and perhaps less about cost savings that could indirectly cause a very negative view. I think Kevin mentioned a very negative view on AI, especially amongst the team. When they think about AI, immediately they think about cost savings. Immediately it translates to, oh, does that mean it's coming for my job? No, it doesn't. AI is elevating your job. It's elevating your position. You can now do so much more than you could do before. And going forward, you can just think about how far this will go.
I love that. Kevin.
Yeah. If the question is what should be the takeaway, I'd say you want to start with the data problem from the beginning, right? So the idea should be governance, data governance and data sort of hygiene should be part of the foundation right at the very beginning of AI. So you got to think about it. You got to think about clean data, well-defined guardrails. You got to define who the human in the loop, who's that human, what should they be doing, and then clear ownership, right? So the idea should be, okay, here are the rules of engagement for this thing, and establish that from the beginning. From the beginning, that's the big takeaway for me.
Awesome. I'm going to bring my colleague Allie into the mix here. Allie, do we have Q&A questions that you can see, or do you want me to pull from the three I can see?
Yeah, I'll go ahead and ask the first one. And if anyone has questions, feel free to add those right now, and we'll see if we have time to get to them. The first question is, what tips and tricks do you suggest for leaders to stay current on AI information?
I can take a stab at it. I would have said like magazines, but I feel like that's a bad answer. That kind of dates you, right? Like there's like Wired magazine was like the thing back in the day. So I'm going to upgrade my answer and say there's actually a lot of pretty good and free newsletters out there that are just a great like bite-sized way to keep up to date on different things. And if you have, folks within your organization or within the industry that you can reach out to and say, hey, do you know of any newsletters or sources? That's always good because, they'll be able to give you some good stuff. But then also, if it's within your org, you can then talk about it, right? Getting the dialogue going. Like if you're both getting the same newsletter, you can say, hey, did you see the latest one? Did you see this, new thing? So like one I like is TLDR, which I think is funny. TLDR, too long didn't read. It's condensed and focused on AI and tech. But I mean, there's a ton of them out there. And that's a great way to stay informed.
Yeah, I've got a follow up to that one. The folks that I've seen do a good job of it, they rely on like other practitioners, right? So they are, they participate in like roundtables or practitioner, sort of community things. I've even seen a couple of great like red subreddits where people are getting together and kind of sharing things. So yeah, a lot of times you're looking for, practitioner case studies, uh, discussing it with some of the clients from your vendor, for example. So yeah, follow other operators is one way to do it too.
Yeah,
Awesome.
I can add a little bit about this. Actually, I think if we're looking at it on a broad spectrum, I think the easiest way might be to ask AI. You could always just
I
put
like
it
that.
into
I love
AI.
it.
Give me what happened in the last week for AI, and it will give you pretty good sources. Obviously, you have to click in and read them, but it'll give you a very nice summary.
That is
It'll
such a
even
great idea. I
it'll
love that.
even deliver that to you like every day if you want.
Yes, you could
Exactly.
set a reminder.
That's pretty
What
cool.
a great answer. We just got dunked on by Leon, Kevin. That was
Yeah,
beautiful.
we did. We did. You crossed this up. That was
I
awesome.
love it.
Oh, Ali, I think maybe we have one more time or one time for one more question. Can we ask the one about the AI tool? Is that okay?
Yeah. So is there a source that would show how AI has been incorporated in payroll?
Ooh, that's a great question. That's a great question. Do you guys have thoughts on those resources, or is that something we should take offline and we could handle in a follow-up?
I know I don't have a great answer, full disclosure, but
Yeah, I'm for payroll.
not involved directly in payroll. But I do know our, accounting, payroll, compensation teams have a lot of vendors that use AI and are able to automate a lot of different processes. So I don't want to, start listing off names of vendors, but there's definitely a lot of them in the space, and most of them are utilizing some form of AI for payroll and other accounting functions.
Thank you, Charles.
Yeah, yeah, and yeah, same here. It would probably be there's some great there's a great YouTuber out there, the AP person, AP gal, I think her name is. She deals with a lot of payroll stuff. Melissa's nodding her head. You probably know her. She's pretty awesome. I met her once, and I was on a panel with her. She's pretty awesome. So yeah, just look around. There's plenty of sources out there to help you with on payroll.
All right, Allie, you're my time check girl. Are we good on time, or can we do one more?
We have a couple of minutes left.
All right.
The next one is, what's the best thing that a member of your team or you've done with an AI tool recently?
Mhm. Okay, so
I can give.
go
Go
ahead.
ahead, Kevin,
Go ahead.
please.
All right, so I'll
No,
go.
no, please.
The most I've seen some teams that are using AI to prioritize collections based on like behavior patterns and then utilize a lot of that sort of fuzzy, soft kind of signal. This was happened to be a fastener company, and what they found is that if a company sort of moves down on the tensile strength of the fasteners, and they also sort of shorten an order or reduce the order amount, that was a leading indicator of turnover. Like they were sort of cheapening out. They were either going to get rid of that sort of product line, or they were reducing it. They were doing something internal that would basically mean that they were at risk of turning over. So there are all sorts of little hidden nuances that can be sussed out, and that's just not human work, right? There's all of these little micro patterns that are out there, and that one company used it to prioritize their collection and even do some anomaly detection. So that was pretty cool.
That's really awesome. I think we may be right up on time. Allie, I want to say a huge thank you. You guys, thanks so much for joining us today. This was the highlight of my week. So thanks for being here, you guys. It's a great convo.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks,
I
everyone.
Thank
appreciate
you.
all of you guys. Thanks so
Thank you.
much.
All right.
Bye-bye.